affect our relationship, affect beliefs about the self. And yesterday we went through a 5-step process from CBT, to build this skill of questioning our thoughts, questioning, uh, you know, thoughts that can appear to be really true. Now, today we'll sort of explore why do I keep having the same thoughts, even when I know that they are irrational. And with that, how we can rewrite, our inner story. So we'll be um, today in this, as we go through the session, we'll be talking about our core beliefs. We'll be talking about neuroplasticity and also about how we can change the language of the mind, change how we think by changing what we believe in. Now, we don't really suffer because we have negative thoughts. We suffer because we keep believing and repeating an old story about ourselves. So, um, as we go through, we'll be able to understand what beliefs do I hold that keep producing this thought that I have. And as we do, before we begin on to the talking, just a few minutes for some reflection. And for that, I would like you to sit comfortably, maybe a bit straight if you can, closing your eyes. And just taking a few seconds to really become present with yourself here. You could do that by um, connecting with the breath. And then perhaps thinking about this, if you ever noticed that the same type of problem seems to keep appearing in different forms throughout your life. Same kind of problem keeps appearing in different ways, different situations, same fears, same reactions, similar insecurities. And we could think that, I have bad luck, or this is just my personality. And if you can bring to mind a recent situation that, say, upset you, not to analyze, but just simply bringing it to your awareness, remembering it, and asking, what did I tell myself about this? What did I tell myself about this? And then, if you can also ask yourself, how old does the story feel? How old does this belief feel to me? And you might just realize that this isn't new. And with that, just taking a few deep breaths. If you can, make the exhale longer than the inhale. and then opening your eyes. Now, say there are two kids, two different children, and both make a mistake in school. Now, the first child, when he comes home, gets to hear from a parent that you made a mistake, you can learn, and next time you can do better. The second child hears, what is wrong with you? Why do you always keep doing this? And years later, when both of these adults make a mistake at work, one could think that I will learn from this. The other could think that I'm not good enough. It's the same event, but different stories. Now, the suffering isn't really coming from the mistake, it's coming from the meaning that, was attached to the mistake years ago. So we all carry stories. We've internalized certain incidents, statements from others. We've seen the world and given some meanings, and we hold on to them as if they are, sort of the operating manual of our life. And and these become the beliefs through which we start looking at the world, start operating from. And if we were to use an analogy, then you could say that a thought is like a leaf. You can see it, it's visible, it's temporary, it's easy to notice. But our beliefs are like roots. They are really hidden under, they run deep, they are quiet, and they are constant. So that's the difference between um, a belief and a thought. And depending on how deep, the roots are, um, the more deep rooted the root is, the stronger the tree is. So the more deep rooted our beliefs become, we tend to have much stronger reactions than much stronger ways of thinking. We can lose some flexibility, be more rigid. And some examples, if we were to think, to differentiate between a thought and a belief, could be that thought could be nobody replied, and a belief could be people leave. A thought could be I made a mistake. My belief could be my worth depends on my performance. A thought could be that, she criticized me, and the belief could be that if people disapprove, it means that I am unsafe. Now, we can spend enormous amount of energy trimming trimming the leaves of our tree. But if we have to make real change, it can only happen, at the roots. Transformation begins there. Now, how do we form these core beliefs? What happens? Now, when something is going wrong in the environment of a child, the child does not ask what's wrong with my parents. The child instead asks what's wrong with me, because psychologically a child is dependent on its parents for survival. Um, so parents then hold certain authority, they hold certain control on the environment of the child, and the child can't really alienate itself from its parents. And therefore, it starts to question itself rather than the parents. It's safer to believe that I am difficult rather than thinking that the adults who care for me are emotionally unavailable. So, children become meaning makers. And children become meaning makers because they are trying to survive in a very different world in amongst adults, and a child doesn't know better. Now, some common beliefs that we could be holding are, mm, I have to be perfect, relationships are hard, relationships don't survive, people are out there to get me, I'm not enough, the world isn't safe, I must keep everyone happy. Now, these beliefs that we form at a young age, they continue to shape our adult lives. And another aspect of neuroscience that then starts playing a big role is our predictive processing, which we've been talking about. That, we could think that, okay, we see something, it goes in the brain and it's reality. But most of the brain actually works the other way because it first predicts and then it checks. Now, our previous experiences help shape what we notice, because our previous experiences sort of give the brain a reference to make meaning of new situations. So if you've been ever bitten by a dog, your brain starts scanning for danger around dogs. If you've been repeatedly criticized, the brain scans for signs of criticism. It's efficiency, because the brain is like, last time this happened, I got hurt, so I need to be prepared this time. And this is why two people can experience the same event very differently, because what they are scanning for in their environments could be very different things. We could be scanning for rejection, we could be scanning for failure, for conflict, for being ignored, being neglected. We could be scanning for not being enough. But we are scanning. We are scanning for something, and what we are scanning for is coming from the stories that have happened at some point, and the brain has now sort of believed or understood that this is a threat. And therefore, what also happens is that we also start getting into self-fulfilling processes. How does that happen? Now, beliefs are not just shaping our thoughts, they're also shaping our behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes, and then outcomes reinforce our beliefs. So, for example, if my belief is, I am not interesting, how will it manifest in my behavior? I will speak less. I'll avoid sharing. I'll stay quiet. What's the outcome? People will engage less with me. And then it will further strengthen my belief that I am not interesting, which is why no one wants to talk to me, and the cycle continues. Now, it doesn't mean the belief was true. It just means that because we are using that belief to constantly run similar thoughts, we also behave in the same way. And because we behave in that way, the outcome obviously then is a result of the input that we are giving, and that further reinforces the belief. So it becomes a cycle, a loop. Um, and and at some point, when we become aware of this, we can read books, gain insight. Now, the problem with insight is that it doesn't change the brain. Awareness is only a first step. Awareness doesn't naturally change how we think, because no matter how much we've read, understood, we could be seeing that we are still repeating the same thoughts. We are still going through the same loops, because while insight is creating awareness, it's only practice that creates wiring. So, neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to change itself, start thinking differently, start acting differently, it doesn't respond to inspiration. It only responds to repetition, and which is why we really need to practice. Um, some exercises, the 5-step process that we looked at yesterday, or different ways of questioning our thoughts and questioning the way we think, because it's only with repetition that we can change. Affirmations also work if we find something that the brain can agree to, and we reinforce that affirmation through our actions. That also can lead to neuroplasticity, because again, we are repeating a different thought. So, as we saw yesterday, with CBT, which is with using logic, questioning ourselves, what we are not doing is creating positive beliefs. We are not saying what's a positive belief. We are just asking what's a more truthful belief. So, um, I'm a failure is is a negative belief, and it's a lie because none of us are complete failures. Now, positive belief could be I'm really successful, but maybe I'm not at that time. So a more balanced belief will be I failed at something important. No one loves me is a negative belief. A more balanced belief could be I'm feeling lonely, and that's not the same thing. um, I always ruin relationships is a negative belief. A more balanced belief could be I've made mistakes in the past, but I can change and I'm capable of learning. So we replace distorted thoughts with more balanced thoughts and with more evidence based alternatives. We are not forcing positivity. And, I find this really important to maybe stress on because we could fall in the trap of wanting to feel positive all the time, read positive things. It's pressure. It's pressure to feel positive all the time. It's pressure. It's pressure to look at everything positively because yeah, there are times when difficult situations happen and um, we are not feeling that great about our lives or about others or about ourselves. So the the objective again is to give a more truthful, honest, balanced perspective rather than a positive perspective or a positive spin to everything. Now, um, if we had to practice and we had to find uh, what belief am I rehearsing every day, maybe we can, go through this small activity and see if we can find something. So before that, I think there's a question. It says, if we have experienced something wrong in the past, is it wrong to be prepared so that the same incident is not repeated? Um, so again, it depends on was it something I did? Say, say I made certain I took certain wrong decisions in, say, a relationship, and because of which the relationship did not work out. Yes, of course, I can reflect on it and I can change myself. I can change how I think so I don't repeat those same mistakes again. However, again, if one dog has bitten, it doesn't mean that all dogs are out there to bite us. So when we say that, should I be prepared? Perhaps, again, it's coming down to catastrophizing because we are saying that if once something wrong has happened, it means that it's going to happen to me all the time or every time. So that's something to watch out for. And again, if it's something that needs a change in myself and change in the way I approach things, I process things, I behave, then certainly we should reflect. Um, we should. I think Abhilasha went offline. She's joining again. Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying, I'll just repeat, the last few sentences, which was that I think that, if a dog has bitten us in the past, it doesn't mean that all the dogs out there are, to get us and to bite us, and it's going to happen every time. So making this distinction between am I using one instance or a couple of instances or a few instances to now predict my future and say that this is going to definitely repeat, every time with me. Because if we do that, then we are not feeling safe in that moment. And if we are not feeling safe, again, the brain is only doing threat control. It doesn't thrive. It doesn't get into decision making. It doesn't get into um, creative thinking. So it stays in the loop of fight or flight. And then this could also be one of the traps that we spoke about yesterday. So when we believe that if something has gone wrong in the past, it's going to happen in the future, we could be falling in those traps. And yeah, it'll be good to identify that, and then again use the 5 steps to work through this thought process. Hope that answers your question, Abhilasha. Now, to get into the practice, I again invite everyone to close their eyes and take just a few slow breaths. Slow, deep breaths. And then you can bring to mind one recurring belief that you feel is persistent, um, and in some ways it's not very helpful. Not a thought, a belief. So bringing to mind a persistent, recurring belief that you could be holding that you think might not be that helpful. And see if you can notice where you first remember feeling something like this. Not forcing any memories, just noticing if you can. If you can remember the first time you had this feeling. And if you can now imagine sitting beside that younger version of yourself, just to understand and be there. See if you can ask this younger version, what did you come to believe about yourself? What did you come to believe about yourself? And then you can ask, what did you need to hear instead? What did you need to hear instead? And see if you can speak those words kindly to yourself. And now returning to your adult self, to your current self, you can ask yourself, what belief do I choose to practice from now on? What belief do I choose to practice from now on? See if you can find those words that are truthful and helpful. And then again, returning to your breath. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Now we know that all our lives, we are shaped by stories, shaped by what we see, what we collect. Some are given to us, they are handed down. Some we create to survive childhood, survive through this world. But some of them are no longer true because maybe we needed them at that time and they were helpful. But today, where we are, they are not helpful. So we can let go of those stories and we can forge a new identity, a new reality for ourselves. And while our first thought may be a habit, we don't need to continue to rehearse it. And that becomes a choice that lies with us. That, we could be wired to think a certain way about certain situations, and that can continue to happen, but not feeding that belief, that thought, and then working through it to come to a more realistic thought is what we can do. And with that, we will see that with continued repetition, it will also change our deeper core beliefs. So thanks for that. We have another question. Do you think that as a child in that situation we choose to be avoiders? Yeah, children, it's very hard for children to look at their parents as flawed or as people they could leave, or not go to, even if something really awful is being seen by the child or experienced by the child, because the child to survive needs the parents, no matter how good or bad the parents are. So, because the need is stronger, the need for survival is stronger than anything else, the child learns to accept the environment as it is, and different children develop different coping mechanisms. So some could start, maybe getting into daydreaming. Some could we've heard people could have imaginary friends. Some children could get more busy, say in studies, in with friends, in TV, anything that can help them cope with the emotional, say, turmoil in the house, or say, there's conflict in the house, anything that's difficult for the child to process. The child will learn a way, in its own way, very intelligently, to find some kind of peace in its own mind to be able to go through that situation. So yeah, the children do learn to avoid because they don't have an option. But as adults, we do have an option. So we can change the stories that we repeat, and we know how to. Okay, so this is the end of the module, which was about training our thoughts and therefore changing our mind. Tomorrow we have a guest speaker with us who will be um, talking to us about, I think, nutrition and mental health. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your time practicing together. Have a good day. Um, good evening. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you.